Okay, so I want you to imagine something with me for a second. It is 40,000 years ago, and you and I have just been dropped into the middle of winter with absolutely nothing. No coat, no lighter, no phone, no gear from any outdoor store. Just us, the wind, and temperatures that hit minus 40 degrees. If we're being completely honest with each other, we would be dead within 2 or 3 days, max. But here's the thing, our ancestors did exactly this, every single year, for hundreds of thousands of years. No heating system, no grocery store, no weather forecast warning them about the storm rolling in. Just raw, brutal, trying to kill you winter. And not only did they survive it, they actually got really, really good at it. So today we're going to break down exactly how they pulled it off. And I promise you, some of what they figured out is going to make you look at ancient people in a completely different. All right, the first thing we need to talk about is fire. And I know that sounds obvious, but stay with me because this goes way deeper than you'd expect. These people didn't just use fire, they carried it with them everywhere they went. Archaeologists have actually found hollow bones and small clay vessels that were used specifically to transport burning embers, sometimes across dozens of kilometers of frozen landscape. Because if your fire went out in the middle of winter, you weren't just uncomfortable, you were finished. So they treated fire like the single most precious thing they owned, because in every practical sense, it was. But the part that really got me wasn't just that they had fire. It was how strategically they used it. Their shelters were essentially ancient heating systems built from scratch. They had low ceilings to trap warm air, tiny entrances to block the wind, and thick walls constructed from mammoth bones and animal hides. And in places where there were no trees, like the open tundra of Siberia or northern Europe, they burned bones instead of wood. It turns out that mammoth bones burn hotter and longer than most timber, and scientists have found bone ash in ancient hearths that represents thousands of continuous hours of fire. These were not bumbling cavemen stumbling through the dark. These were people who understood heat transfer and fuel efficiency better than most of us ever will, and they figured it out with zero formal education. Now here is where things get genuinely interesting, and maybe a little uncomfortable for some of us. In the dead of winter, plant food is essentially gone. There is no fruit, no vegetables, no carbohydrates anywhere to be found. So what exactly were these people eating to stay alive? The answer is everything the animal had to offer. And I mean absolutely everything. They ate the muscle meat, obviously, but they also ate the liver first, sometimes while it was still warm and barely cooked, because liver is loaded with vitamins C, A, and B12 that would otherwise be impossible to get in winter. They ate the kidneys, the heart, and the brain. They cracked open bones with stone tools, specifically to get to the marrow hidden inside, because marrow is essentially nature's most calorie-dense energy source. A rich, fatty fuel that the body burns incredibly efficiently in extreme cold. Nothing from the animal was ever thrown away. Not the organs, not the fat, not even the hide. The fat was rendered down and used both as food and as fuel for lamps that kept their shelters lit through the long, dark nights. And here is the wild part. This diet, which would send a modern nutritionist into a full-blown panic, actually worked beautifully. When scientists study the bones of Ice Age humans, they consistently find strong skeletal development, healthy growth, and almost no signs of nutritional deficiency. It turns out that when you eat the whole animal from nose to tail, you get a surprisingly complete nutritional profile. A body working hard in extreme cold does not want a salad. It wants dense, fatty, calorie-rich fuel, and these people figured that out thousands of years before any scientist ever studied it. Okay, so this is honestly my favorite part of this whole story. So I want you to really sit with this for a moment. Everything I just described, the fire management, the shelter construction, the way they processed every part of an animal, none of it was ever written down anywhere. There were no books, no manuals, no guides, and certainly no internet. All of that knowledge lived entirely inside human beings, passed down from person to person through storytelling, through watching elders work, and through years of hands-on practice where a single serious mistake could genuinely cost you your life. The person in a group who could look at the sky and predict a blizzard coming 3 days out, or find liquid water beneath a frozen river, or know exactly which migration route the reindeer would take this particular winter. That person was the most valuable member of the entire group. Not the biggest person, not the most aggressive fighter, the one who knew things. Anthropologists actually have a term for this. They call it cumulative culture, which is the human ability to build on knowledge across generations without ever losing what came before. It is genuinely one of the things that makes our species unique on this entire planet. And the humbling thing is that indigenous Arctic communities today still carry threads of this knowledge. Tens of thousands of years of tested, refined, life or death wisdom about how to live in cold that would kill most of us within hours. We have the nerve to call ancient people primitive, when the honest truth is that they would look at most of us and genuinely wonder how we managed to stay alive. So after everything we have covered, the fire, the food, the knowledge, the actual number one survival tool that ancient humans had is something much simpler than any of that, and it is something we kind of take for granted today. It was each other. And I do not mean that in a soft, inspirational poster kind of way. I mean it in a very literal, practical, survival of the species kind of way. We have found Ice Age skeletons with fully healed broken limbs, with missing hands, with clear signs of serious long-term illness. And these individuals survived for years, sometimes decades, after their injury, which means that someone in their group was feeding them during that time. Someone was keeping them warm. Someone made a deliberate decision to spend precious resources on a person who could no longer hunt or gather for themselves. That was not weakness or sentimentality. It was a long-term survival strategy. Because in a tight group of 20 or 30 people, every single person goes through a bad winter eventually. The person you carried through their crisis last year might be the exact person who drags you back from the edge next year. Cooperation was not just a nice idea. It was the most important technology they had. The people who made it through were not the toughest individuals. They were members of the toughest. So when we step back and look at all of this together, what exactly did Ice Age humans know that we have completely forgotten? They knew that knowledge is more valuable than physical strength. They knew that wasting any resource, however small, is simply not an option when your life depends on it. They knew that fire is not just useful, it is sacred. And they knew, more than anything else, that nobody gets through the hardest seasons alone. We have heated homes and grocery stores and all the comforts of the modern world, and none of that is a bad thing. But there is something in this story that feels worth holding on to. This idea of being deeply, genuinely competent in your environment, of trusting the people around you completely, and of facing the harshest conditions the world can throw at you without flinching. Our ancestors survived 40,000 winters back to back to back to put you exactly where you are right now, and that was not luck. That was them being absolutely, relentlessly extraordinary. All right, if you enjoyed this one, go ahead and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what surprised you the most, and I will see you in the next video.